I'm coming. I'm diving deep today, peeps. All right, so here's where we're at. And I've been feeling compelled. So let me know if you can hear me in the comments. There's a beautiful bird in the background along with the trees, and I just want to make sure that you can all hear me clearly. So I've got the mic on the side here. This has become a topic of conversation, especially in our Ridiculously RawThentic group, and I really wanted to touch upon it because it's been bringing up some of my old stuff. And whenever I have to sit with something, because I can feel some emotion around it, or we can say trigger. What is a trigger? A trigger is an unresolved, unhealed past trauma, and the emotion is telling us from the trigger, it's time to dive in deep again and see what this is about and how we can feel into it in order to heal through it. So I want to say hello, good afternoon. I hope you're all having a beautiful day, and just a heads up, I mean, if you've ever experienced cheating on someone or being cheated on, I want to know in the comments, have you ever? And you can be honest, I'm not going to judge you. I've done it. I've cheated on myself more than anything, because that's what this is about. The reasons we cheat are not normally the ones we try to rationalize or figure out why people cheat or why we do it. The biggest cheat is the deception of ourself and what feels right, and noticing that something doesn't feel right in us, because our bodies will tell us every time. Yeah, so let me know in the comments, have you cheated? Have you been cheated on? What did it feel like in both cases? It doesn't feel good, does it? If you've cheated, it's a lie, it's a secret. Even if you tell someone, there's fear around it. But do you know that you have fear, and that's the reason for cheating? Fear is the reason behind most of the actions that we take and the things that we do. Cheating is all about deceiving yourself, because when we cheat and we go without ourselves, we go outside looking for some form of satiation, some like validation of who we are, you know, whether it's physical, maybe it's not even physical, because here's the thing, most cheating isn't sex. Most cheating isn't just food. Cheating it starts in the mind. It's a thought. I don't feel good about myself. The people in my life aren't making me feel good about myself. I have to look at that. Is it really about them, or a lack of understanding of myself is really underlying a lot of it? A lack of communication, first with yourself, because you have to recognize it first in order to communicate it to anybody else. Communication is key, and it's the reason for breakdowns in relationships. Again, fear is what drives us or holds us back from anything we do or don't do in this life. Well, I'm fearful that if I express what I need, because this comes down to also, a lot of times cheating is not feeling our needs are met, our wants, our wishes, our desires. Maybe you have communicated it, but you really haven't done a good enough job of communicating yourself. You haven't been clear and concise, and you just expect the other person or people to understand. But see, to understand means they have to care enough about you. They have to be trustworthy enough to be available to you. Because again, relationship is all based on trust. And that's about stability, security, feeling that you're safe and that the other person isn't going to condemn you or berate you for your needs. Because the bottom line is, if you don't express what you need, if you don't work on fulfilling your own needs in some way, shape, or form, then you're the one who's deceiving yourself. And that's the biggest cheat we could ever taking inaction on, because there's active cheating and inactive cheating. And when we're actively cheating, that's obvious most of the times. But inactive cheating is probably the most deceptive because you don't even realize you're doing it. You're deceiving yourself. I need this. Well, you're up in here. You're aware of what you need, but are you communicating it out? Are you taking care of your own needs? Because in the end, happiness is your responsibility. We'd like to think that our partners can do everything for us and make us feel good about ourselves, or that a situation, when it gets better, we rely on externals more than we rely on the internals. But if you're in a good place with yourself and you're truly honest and vulnerable enough to own your stuff, nobody needs to tell you, only you know, then you can work on what you need to process, to share, to spread love for yourself, to fulfill whatever it is you need. This is the bottom line. So I've seen a lot of posts in the group and a lot of comments regarding being cheated on and what to do, and trying to figure out, what was the rationale behind the other person. See, here's the thing. The people that cheat, I can give you several of my own personal experiences because that's where I'm going to speak from as a woman. First, let's break it down to masculine versus feminine, male and female. For a man to desire his woman, his wife, his partner, he needs to feel respected. But if at any point in his life he doesn't feel he's living up to even receiving respect or being respected, and he knows himself, because only the man can know this, and a lot of men have been emasculated to feel like I need to provide. So that's the first place, that if you're not providing as a man, you don't feel like you can be respected. And a lot of passive aggressivity comes from that, ladies. Men will shut down, they will react, because they know they're not fulfilling a role that they've been conditioned to believe they need to fill. And so when they're unable to respect themselves first, and then you're not able to respect them, it becomes this. That's the first problem within relationships, is that there's a lack of respect on both sides for the same party, and it creates a really powerful struggle, a power struggle too. Because when you don't have respect for yourself, you try to find things you can control. And a lot of times, men, you are doers. You want to take action. You want to do something. You want to show something that can be respected. And because of that, sometimes you tend to over-control. Ladies, have you ever had a man who tried to tell you what you should do, try to tell you what you shouldn't do, put these limitations, we call that conditional love, upon you to make you feel like, is there anything I can do right? As a woman, I can say I've had that done to me. But then if I can flip the screen and see from the compassionate eyes of my inner self, that maybe that was really about them, which it always is, it's a fear. When you don't have control over your own life and you don't have control over circumstances that keep you from providing or whatever it is, and all of it starting up in the mind, your mind can go off in a crazy tailspin. It will start grappling for what can I gain control of to give me a sense that I got shit together. How can I find ways to validate or receive respect from the externals instead of recognizing what is the real underlying cause and the root of what's really transpiring here? What is the lesson? What is the blessing? What is the healing that needs to happen? So a lot of men haven't been taught that, number one, it's okay to be vulnerable and courageous and share with their partner. This is what I'm feeling. And I'm sorry if I act a certain way, but this is what is going on within me. It's easier for men to isolate because you're supposed to be strong. It's easier for men to turn around and go, well, if I appear like I got things under control, it's okay, and I don't need to, prove myself, but yet you're still trying to prove yourself. Because you're trying to prove yourself just by being strong, hiding, avoiding, rejecting. Like if I reject someone else, I've done this. If you reject someone else, they don't have the opportunity to reject you. So you've got the control. And again, that's fear driving it. So when a man doesn't feel respectable or respected, Going back to the other side, as a woman, he can't desire his woman. And as women, it's a natural need. This is the polarity that plays in relationship between men and women. Women need to feel desired, wanted, appreciated, seen, heard. We need touch. And so there are the different languages of love. And so we all express that differently. And something that came up in my level 2 this past weekend, or the previous weekend, regarding authentic relationships. In every relationship, there is a lover and a beloved. That doesn't always mean that the lover is the woman or the man, but everybody has more of that energy between the two in a relationship. What does that mean? It means the lover is the giver. They're the ones that want to protect. They want to take care of. They're the security. They're the stable, trying to hold you in that space. The beloved tends to be the one put on a pedestal and admired and doted on. But see, it doesn't always play that way. And one of the problems is if you don't recognize which of the two you are, chances are you may overcompensate or undercompensate for one role or the other. Ladies, I can say for gents too, because I know there's plenty of men that do this. Maybe you're the person who's trying to do it all for both. It isn't going to serve. The relationship will continue to crumble if one person is trying to do it all for both. Because after a while, it no longer is love, it becomes resentment. Especially if the needs of the one who you are overcompensating are not met. And so consider where you may have been and where you may be at, or even to try to avoid ever being in that position. Communication will always be your key. And relationship is all about trust. It is all about open, honest, vulnerable, and courageous communication. It means putting your ass on the line, which is kind of a funny little statement, but in our course, we had this picture drawn, asophaline. It's kind of joking, but it's basically, you got to put your ass on the line in any relationship. Putting your ass on the line is taking courage, is taking a stand and showing that you care and that it matters to you how your relationship is. If it's important to you, you will make steps, you take steps, actions, you will speak up. But how do you do it is a question. Can you communicate from the heart, or are you going to just act out and just become self-destructive? So in relationships, when it comes down to, my needs are not being met. How do I express that? Well, depending on how your needs need to be met, that depends on you and your love language. Maybe you need to hear words of appreciation. Maybe you need affection. Maybe you need gifts. But see, only you know that. So if it's uncommunicated, nobody's going to be able to read your mind. Maybe you're lucky and somebody can read your mind. But even then, that's a dependency. That's an expectation, and nobody should be expected to read your mind. True love in relationship is really wanting to understand the other person, and that means literally standing under them and being willing to listen. Listening is probably the hardest thing for most of us. It took me a long time to just sit and allow people to speak and not feel like, oh, I need to interject here. I'm afraid they're not going to hear me. Ooh, I don't want to forget that, so I have to say it now. Or, ooh, I was triggered, so I got to speak up now. Well, how about letting the other person finish? How about actively listening, which means you're not listening to respond. You're listening with the intent to hear, to understand, to get to know the other person. So how many of you out there have had what we call foo-foo relationships? More like a partnership that has a contract attached to it, or more like those fake relationships. On the surface, it appears all beautiful, but under the surface, there's no communication. You go through motions. You say you love each other, but you're not really loving each other. And you see, words are really easy, and I know when I was growing up, you can tell if someone's just, I love you, or somebody gives you one of those patty hugs instead of heart to heart, like full on. If you ever see me and I give you a hug, you'll know you're getting a real hug. But those patty hugs, yes, it gives me the eye rolls, because they're like, there's a gap here. They do this little little taps on the back, and you're like, are you kidding me? Really? Is that real? It's superficial. So the question, first off, in any relationship, how real is it? Or how superficial is it? And if we go back to why we cheat, here are just some reasons I know for myself. Number one, very simple. I was young and stupid. I didn't know any better. I just wanted to do whatever. I wanted to be able to do what men do. Well, it's okay for them. I really wasn't that self-destructive in the sense of many partners growing up, because it just felt icky. And I have to admit, I like to be with one person. And I had a little bit of a fear, so I would be, the whole STD thing scared the crap out of me. But I have always liked to flirt. I don't think anything's wrong with flirting, except for when it goes past a certain point. Touching and making, sexual comments and things like that do tend to borderline. And you have to find that, is that really authentic, or is that superficial? And so, yeah, it's natural for us to flirt, because it does make us feel better that somebody is showing an interest, maybe in just passing. But only you know, so it's only for you to know. Another reason people cheat, because they're looking for external validation. If their partner is not showing them any form of affection or attention, I'm going to tell you right now, gentlemen, ladies too, there's a certain point that if I, for myself, as a woman, if a man that I am engaged with decides that my needs don't matter, at a certain point, I'm just going to, I'm not going to say now, because I'm in a totally different space. In my past, I can understand that some of the reasons I cheated was because I knew the relationship didn't feel right. Some of it was I did want them to know. But see, there's a manipulation in cheating, isn't there? You want to feel better about yourself, which you don't, because you do feel guilty. And sometimes the secrecy of it gives you a high, which is hence why people can be serial cheaters, because they're getting away with something and nobody knows. Cheating really is about lack of self-worth and self-esteem. And if you're not feeling validated by your partner, if your partner's ignoring you, and you're missing out on some basic need, basically, it's easy to look at that person's giving me attention. And the attention turns into something more. It's the feeling of lack. It's not that you're lacking. It's just, well, it looks greener over on the other side of the fence. It's easy to see that. And of course, some people leave their spouses or partners because they think that's in a better situation, and only to find out it's worse, or definitely not what they thought it was, because it was so much more glorified. Oh, I was in this wonderful relationship with this person, but you were still involved with somebody else. So you've got this energy that's not even fixated in one place. You are scattered all over the place. And boy, oh boy, ladies, if you are engaging in physical activity, sex with more than one partner, now you got some crazy stuff going on up here, because we take on the energy of men when we have sex with them. All of that, we take that in. We receive whatever's going on with that person. And if it's a one-night stand, God bless you, you don't know what you got yourself into. And it's not a healthy situation anyway. But it takes recognizing, what is the reason you cheat? Are you cheating because you don't have faith in your partnership? I mean, it's also lack of commitment. Are you able to commit? some people can't commit. In my past, I know one of the reasons I found it easier to be in relationships that were long distance is because there was a lack of commitment. Technically, it was basically a part-time relationship. Yeah, you talk on the phone, you communicate and all that, but it's not real communication. It's more distant. It's lacking because you're not seeing each other on a daily basis, so you don't know your in and out, behaviors, patterns, routines. So when you get in that relationship, in a physical, here I am living with this other person, it changes the dynamics, doesn't it? How many people have gotten married, moved in together, and gone, oh my gosh, the person changed. Did they really change? Well, some people do because they were acting out some role that wasn't real to begin with beforehand. But everybody's true colors always come out in the end. But when it boils down to if you're willing to work through whatever differences, both partners, I do believe that even if one person cheats, you can recover from it. But the question is, are both parties willing to work through it together? The only way you're going to know is if you're ever faced in that situation and if you care enough. Most of us don't cheat because we want to be with somebody else. The cheating is because we need someone to be there for us. We feel unseen, and if someone sees us, boy, that feels good. Like I said, cheating doesn't have to be a physical, sexual act. In the case of things like pornography, other forms of cheating like flirting through texts and things like that, when you have a partner, those are very superficial. But if you truly have a problem, that's only something you can own up to and work through. I had one situation many years ago where my partner, who I was in a long distance relationship, came to visit me, and a previous time I had found porn on their laptop, and I confronted them, and they said, oh, it's not mine, it's someone else's who used my laptop. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Back in those days, I will tell you though, I was in a fear-based mentality. So I almost was looking for things to go wrong in relationship, hence why I could find things to go wrong. And when you're in that space of looking for it, even if it's unconscious or in your deep subconscious, it's what brings it to the surface. That's called manifesting. And that's a perfect example of powerful manifesting, that when you are looking for something, you will find it. Because where attention goes, energy flows. And again, if you find it, you only have you to actually confront and question, is this because of I'm stuck on past experiences, or am I fearful of, it's always going to be fear-based, again. So in this particular case, they came to visit me. On my laptop, I somehow ended up going through the history because I was trying to bring up a web page. I saw, I don't know how many pages. I saw all this porn. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm one of those people, I will work with my partner. And my first thing is like, if you like porn, I don't have a problem with that. Like, maybe we can incorporate. If that's an interest of yours, I'm open to it. He was very vehement, like did not want to discuss it, I could sense that he felt more ashamed and didn't want to own it. Like he was in total denial of it, which shows me now, looking back, because at the time I felt my body heat up. Like it felt uncomfortable. That, unless you're a person in the circumstances, I can tell you, only you know what it's going to feel like if you ever encounter that. To me, it felt like cheating, because my face, my head, my body just heated up, and I felt this zzz, like I'd been deceived. I mean, like, why couldn't he bring this to my attention? I'm a very open person. I'm open to whatever. But that doesn't mean that it's healthy. If the person is unwilling to share that with you, what you can do about it is nothing. And if you try to communicate it and they deny it, then that's something they're going to have to work on. And you have to work through, because you have to decide, is this relationship worth it or not? So we didn't actually speak for a while as a result of that. it was a really strange, uncomfortable situation. In fact, this particular person, very dear to my, anyway, I mean, but I haven't spoken to in a while too, made me wonder, like, what was wrong with me? And it was my feelings of inadequacy that came up to question. I never questioned it in the sense of that's a problem that person has. And that's what ends up happening with cheating, right? Have you, any of you, am I wrong? Have you had this experience? You want to make it about yourself because you think it's about you, but it's really about the other person, no matter what. People don't cheat because of you. They cheat because of themselves. If I cheat, it's not because you did something to me. It's because I'm feeling lack within me. And yeah, it might be a dynamic of the relationship that drove me to it. But again, I'm accountable for my actions, and I'm the one who has to go deep within to ask why. What was it really about? Was it my failure to communicate? Was it my failure to notice that maybe there were problems in the relationship that didn't get addressed, that needed to be opened up, something? Or maybe it was just time to move on, and instead of moving on, I just decided to find another avenue. Oh, you are chatty. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful bird. Magpie, maybe? Or a blue jay. I think it's a blue jay. Oh, it's literally right there. He wants to give his say. Isn't it funny how birds are? There he goes. When it really comes down to it, we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, we all want to feel, because we are tactile humans. Even if you say you don't, at the heart of everything, we are driven by fear or we are driven by love. And we have to really hone in on what are our root causes of suffering that drive us with fear to do things that are self-sabotaging or destructive to ourselves and the relationships that we are engaged in. Right, Tiffany? Thank you. Life's too short. Why spend it with somebody if you're unhappy? But if you're unhappy, first try communicating. Because if you're the type of person who just kind of like brushes it off, and you do have low self-esteem, this is the time to speak up. I'm going to tell you, this time that we're living in today, we have all sorts of ways to communicate. We have cell phones, we have text, we have Facebook, we have all these different ways to reach out and touch people, but we're not really physically touching. We have one-on-one conversations. But how present are we really? Can we truly say that we tried if it's superficial? We just threw out a bone, we just threw out some scraps, and we expected them to pick them up, but would you have? Fear again, we fear being rejected. And if we haven't received a lot of attention, sometimes we're fearful we won't get it. So when we don't want to say anything to our partners, and this has been one of my examples, instead of saying something to my partner, I'm afraid that they'll reject me for saying what I need. And what does that do? How does that serve? At least if you say something and they reject you for it, you can turn around and go, you know what? Thank you very much. You just saved me a whole lot of time. I don't need to cheat on you. I can go elsewhere and be happier. I don't need to cheat on anybody. Because that would have been cheating on myself to withhold what it is I needed. It's cheating on yourself to not communicate that you feel uncomfortable, that you don't feel your needs are being met. But again, relationship comes down to, do you feel safe enough? Do you feel secure enough with the individual, the partner that you have in your life, that you chose, and they chose you, to speak up? If you don't, then that might be something that needs to be brought up. I don't feel safe with you, but I need to express myself. I feel like this, or this is how I interpret your behavior towards me. Like when you isolate or you withdraw or you don't speak to me, I feel like you're rejecting me. What really it boils down to is if you don't speak up, you're just going to suffer in silence. And nobody deserves to suffer in silence. And even if your partner does withdraw and ignore you for any reasons, they themselves might be in a place of fear as well. It takes someone extending an olive branch enough to say, are you okay? I notice you don't want to talk, or I notice you don't come around, or I notice this, that, or the other. You don't no longer do all these things that you used to do. And I can tell you that might be one of my patterns I've done in the past as well. I will give, and I start to go, wait a minute. I'm giving what I would like to have in return. And I'm honest about that. I love massages. I love giving hugs. I love giving kisses. I'm very affectionate. I'm very physical. But if I stop doing that, it's probably because I don't feel I'm receiving it. If I feel neglected, I'll start working more on me, because that's all I can do. And if the partner I were to have is upset with that or feels that I'm holding back, well, maybe they need to look at what it is they might be holding back from me. It's both ways. And I don't think either one is better or right or wrong. It's just, again, if you don't communicate it, you'll never know. Communication is going to be the key to any relationship. And if you think you can go out there and find a relationship that doesn't need work, or what some people dislike, that word compromise. Compromise isn't a bad word. It means meeting the other person where they're at and then meeting you, because it has to happen on both sides. And I think one of the other big causes of failures in relationship, personally, and women, you can speak up for this, and I can only speak for a woman because I am. If I ask my partner to do something, and I don't ask for much from most of my friends will tell me I'll try to do everything anyway, and then I'll say, no, I got this, because that's just my pattern. I'm always trying to take care of everybody else, and I do admit that has caused me to feel neglected and realize, holy crap, I'm not taking care of myself. And so then sometimes I have to come back and I have to go within and go, okay, I need to work on myself more again, because clearly if I'm not receiving it from elsewhere, then I need to do it for me. If a partner asks you for help or something that will make their life easier, will save them time, will make them happy, will give them joy. What is so difficult and troublesome for people to actually fulfill that request? I think the ego, and I'm not going to say the ego is a bad thing, I just want you to know the ego is a good thing. It can be your master or your slave, or servant. It needs to be your servant. You should not be mastered by ego. If your ego says, I don't want to do that, that's when it's mastering you. But when your ego says, you know, I observed that that would really make my partner happy. I don't see where that's taking anything from me. They asked me to do such and such. Because wouldn't you want them to do for you? So if your partner asks you to do something for them, as long as, number one, it's not harmful, it's not harming anyone, it's easy to do, it's just maybe you just don't feel like doing it, making a little effort is actually called love. It's called love in action. So when someone asks you to do that, guess what? Happy wife, happy life. You know, the man will be happier if he takes care of the wife and she feels she can safely ask him, can you take care of this for me? Could you take out the trash? Those are the simplest things, right, ladies? We'll just say, could you put the trash out by the curb? Not a difficult tasking. And I'll be honest, as a woman, a lot of times we don't want to ask. We want a man to just step into that role where a lot of times they just go and do it. Because if I don't have to ask, it shows you're paying attention. When I have to ask, it makes me feel you don't pay attention. It shows me that you're not aware of what my needs are or what would make my life easier. If you go and do something that you want me to get excited about, the question is how much are they really paying attention to what I talk about? Do they actually engage enough to notice and care? Do I have to repeat myself over and over again? That's another one, ladies. Do you ever find you say something and your partner asks you later on the same question you've already answered, or asks you a question at one point and then re-asks the question? Now, I'm not saying that there might not be a mental issue going on there. There might be some brain fog. I don't know. You only know your partner. But if your partner turns around and forgets something you've already told them, it tends to put you up in your head like, is this person even present with me? And because that's what relationship really is about. It's being present. And being present means available. Mind, body, soul. I'm here, I'm listening. I see you, I can smell you, I can taste you, I can touch you. All those senses engaged, whatever that is for you. Relationship is all about two people. And guess what? There are 3 truths in every circumstance. It's your truth, their truth, and the actual truth, the neutral truth of what really transpired. So when it comes down to communicating needs, pay attention to how you communicate, pay attention to how they communicate. If one partner is always willing to answer and fulfill the requests of one and the other one is constantly denying the requests of that other partner, it's going to be like this. There has to be a come down to like, let's work this out if you want it to work together, work. It's not us versus them, people. This is not a relationships are hard, oh, they're difficult. No, the only reason relationship ever seems hard or difficult is when you're resisting. When you're fighting, doing, because something up here says, I don't want to. If you aren't available for the other person, then you don't need to be in that relationship. If you can't fulfill those needs because, it goes against my belief system, but it doesn't hurt anyone, but yet you want them to do things for you. You got to kind of look at both sides, like where are you coming from and where's the other person at? And where are they coming from and where are you at? Because I find it interesting that a lot of times what's beneath one person that they expect their partner to do, they won't do because, that's beneath me. But yet they don't mind their partner doing it. There's an imbalance. And that's a call to power trip, by the way. You cannot expect to control a partner that you're unwilling to serve. And what relationship boils down to is service to one another. It's not one more than the other. In some cases, maybe we do happen to compensate, but eventually we always end up balancing out, right? And if you want to avoid cheating, being the cheater or cheating on, you got to go work through that hard stuff of opening your mouth and speaking and trying to stay as much in your heart as possible. You don't go in and attack someone and say, you're not doing this for me. You got to go in with an open hand, receptive communication, reflective, make sure that the person understands, is this what I heard? It means repeating back to them, this is what I heard you say. Am I correct or not? You'll never know until you give it a go. If you don't try, you can't say it didn't work out because you didn't try if you don't. I have a favorite drink once again, GT Days Puer Root Beer. Yummy. I need a drink, I'm parched. But a lot of us are hyper responsible, hyper accountable, and we take on other people's roles. I've done that quite a bit in my life. I'm not perfect, but I am perfectly who I am. I have cheated, I have been cheated on. That doesn't make me a bad person, but it gives me opportunity to grow and not make the same mistakes over and over again. If you're somebody who has been cheated on and that pattern keeps coming up, you might want to sit with, what can I do to recognize the pattern in what I'm doing or not doing? Maybe you're in a place of fear that says, I'm afraid the person's going to cheat. And then therefore you end up somehow creating that condition, the manifesting of it. If you're over controlling with your partner, that's going to create, first off, it's unsafe, it's insecure, it shows that there's a control issue. If you're trying to control anybody, you might as well be pushing them away. You can't control somebody else. Most people can't control themselves. You're only responsible for your behavior and your actions. Don't put it on anybody else's shoulders. If someone cheats on you, If you're willing to work it through, that's the best you can do. If the other person is not willing, that's something you have to deal with, and you have to be honoring wherever someone is. So if you're willing to work through and the other person is too, that's another thing I want to accentuate. Both parties, in order to work through, need to honor no matter what is said of the other person, not take it as a personal attack first off, because partnership and relationships is about working together, not against each other. If you're playing the martyr, oh, it's all them, they're doing it to me, you're playing a victim role, that's where you're living. That's the space that you're creating. And that's not safe for either person. In order to work through things, both parties have to be willing to listen. You have to be able to hold sacred space for the other person. That, okay, somebody did something that was dishonest. I may not like it, but if I love that person enough, maybe I'm willing to hear the reasons they have behind it. If they didn't feel valued enough, I'd be wanting to know, what could I have done to make it better? What can we do to get through this together? Because that's what relationship does. That's what love does. Love says, I love you enough to put all that aside and to find a solution that works for both of us. If we are not compatible and we need to move forward, I can support that too. It may be painful, but again, I don't want to stay in the familiar situation, the familiar relationship, just because that's all I know. And sometimes that's another reason why people don't talk about, oh, I cheated. They hold as secrets and what have you, because they're afraid the other person's going to leave. Again, that's a manipulative tactic. It's control. If they don't know, it won't hurt them. Yeah, but it's hurting you because you're having to hold that secret and keep it quiet. So nobody wants to have to hold on to something that is going to eat them from the inside out. How many people die on their deathbed and, oh, I have this one last confession to share. Again, cheating is really about cheating yourself. Whether you've been cheated on or cheated on someone else. And the question is, how can you better ensure that your needs are met? That's really what this is boiling down to. Love, and it starts with self. But then we also have to confront our worth and our value. And that's what drove me in some cases to cheat. Not some cases, there weren't a whole lot, only maybe a couple. The whole idea behind self-worth and value is that you have to value and feel yourself worthy. Nobody's going to do that for you. If you have to look for external validation of your value and your worth, you're going to constantly go without. That's an inside job, and only you can do it. So trust, accountability and responsibility, because everybody's got to take responsibility when it comes down to it. Was I not present enough? What could I have done? What could I have said? All of it applies. I like what Brené Brown says about braving, about boundaries, about responsibility, accountability, the vulnerability aspect, that if I'm going to be vulnerable, I want to know that you're not going to hold what I say to you against me. You're not going to use my words and throw them up at me. That's probably one of the big things, right? Oh, you cheated on me. You keep bringing it up. You have to be willing to move past it and not use it as like some probing machine here. That's immature. There's nothing mature about that. Integrity, it really boils down to integrity. Unfortunately, if we cheat and we're cheating ourselves, we're misaligned and our integrity is out of whack. There's nothing about integrity in that. Neutrality is very important because you have to look at it from all angles and take your emotions out of it. Usually that's the hard part, because believe it or not, most people, it's their ego that flares up. The emotions that come out of finding out a partner cheats usually end up being up in here. It's all ego based, and I mean the master ego, not the servant, because it's How dare you do that to me? That person. And then it's a victim role. They did that to me. They cheated on me. No, actually they did it to themselves. And you just happen to be part of the experience, that whether you're part of the reason or you manifest, there's so many different layers to that. And love, I think it really boils down to how much do you love yourself and how much do you love the partner. You got to work through it one way or another, with or without. So I think that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, let me know in the comments. I love you all so much. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing and caring. If you know somebody who can benefit from this video, please tag them below. Let them know, you know, it's not all one-sided. It's all inside. Remember that. It's not all one-sided. It's inside. Yum. Have an amazing day. Get outside in nature. Replenish your vital nutrients, your vitamin D. Maybe get out by the sea. Life's short. Open your mouth and speak. If you need to be heard and seen, get out there. Put your ass on the line. I love you so much.